In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways.
No, should I take your for content?
Oh yes, absolutely, Getso.
Mind? I forgot the.
Okay, it's
What Ntsiki ute a vote for MK
1707. Wait, what is it?
Ntsiki shosha.
1707.
Akafuni both.
What's saying Zeni? No, and these are the things we need to talk about here.
I'm gonna count down from 5. Okay. We'll be ready in 5.
But
4,
this is the truth.
3, 2,
I'm gonna show you.
and
Yes.
1. Yeah, we're
So
ready.
what is it? What is the truth?
I don't know.
Tell me what's ugly.
MK is no women in leadership.
MK has no women in leadership. You were the one who said I must go and check out MK, Papa.
I know I did. And I still stand by what I said.
Because there's no women in leadership. I think for me, I'm having an issue with I feel like, because I mean, you remember my stance with like the Khwezi issue and just the whole womanizing thing. For me, honestly, I kind of feel like a man who's compromised diplomatically, it affects their legacy. So I get so stressed about that. But when you're presented with new information, then it's stupid of you not to account what you've heard, right? So with MK, they're playing into my feelings about the liberation struggle. Okay. And the lack of women now, for me, makes it uncomfortable.
I get you. Should I respond to that?
Yes, I can win conversation.
Okay. Look, I note what you're saying. But okay, when one looks at the leadership of MK, and I think those who are watching can go to your post because you've just posted that MK has no leadership. And I think what you've done is you've put it's the face of President Zuma and some of the MK leaders and AMKU leadership. But the people that I saw there are not part of the ANC leadership of MK. I saw Nish, who was in the ANC, who's not in the ANC of MK. There's another gentleman that I saw who's not in the leadership of MK. And I'm not quite sure what makes the leadership of AMKU or the makeup of the leadership of AMKU. But I think let's just speak about President Zuma and his legacy when it comes to women.
Yes.
Yes.
Legacy goes to women.
Yes. But in particular, when it comes to women empowerment, let me remind you, Ntsiki, that it was President Zuma who started the Department of Women, Children and Those with Disabilities. I'm not sure if you're aware of that.
I'm not aware, but also, just to say, I hate how women are put together in this. Why are women not with men?
Okay.
They should, anyways,
No,
as you were saying.
Okay, no,
yes.
it's fine. I'll respond to that. So the the Department of Women, Children and Those with Disabilities was initiated by President Zuma, and the first minister was Minister Shabangu. Apologies. Now, I also want to remind you that the Ministry of Rural Development was also initiated by President Zuma, and when one looks back, one has to take into consideration the feminization of poverty in rural areas, primarily because of migration. So that was the rationale behind the Department of Rural Development. And now, to respond to what you're asking in relation to why must women be clustered on their own, I think for me it's very critical. It's no different to BEE with all its limitations. So you must take into consideration that women were oppressed. So now, how do you then start systematically, changing a history of women oppression and women exploitation? So that was the rationale when President Zuma and his team created this ministry. And now you come into, you spoke of Khwezi. And for me, I think I would want us to have this discussion in a very fair manner, where we do not use it, where we do not weaponize it, because the issue was also taken to court. Because what might also happen, I might bring back, the issue of Saki Makozoma and the guys who surrounded Thabo Mbeki, when the tapes, remember, when they were speaking of Zulu Boy, but over and above that, the calls between Khwezi and those who were speaking, who were anti-Zuma at the time. I mean, it was indicated during the court case that there were more than close to 90 calls the same day when Khwezi was with JZ. But you see, I'm a woman, and I would not want to speak ill of
or dismiss
that process. But at the same time, we also forget that men or males, they come from us. They are also our children. So, what we have seen as well playing itself out is how women have also been weaponized. So for me, that is the challenge. But over and above that, we've also seen many men coming out to say that, someone opened a case against me. It is not true. And even the courts themselves coming out to say that, some men who has been accused of rape a long time ago, their case has been dismissed because of new DNA evidence. But I think to close this matter, this is a man who was not found guilty by a court of law. So we could decide whether we take, because the law is very clear that you are innocent until proven guilty. And in this case, Zuma was not proven guilty. So that's how I take it. But you are raising a very fundamental point. MK, let us see more women in leadership position. But at the same time, I think it's so important that as women, we start to assert ourselves. Ntsiki, you are a leader in your own right. I'm just surprised that we don't have women leaders who are contesting elections. Because men are in any position where people are in power, they are not just going to remove themselves for us. It's even
we're gonna have to fight for it.
Yes, even with white power, white people are just not going to give up their rights. So even in the ANC, they might speak about 50-50, but the reality is that women are being used as tokens. The ANC has never supported a woman president. We supported Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. The ANC, including the majority of women in the ANC, did not support Nkosazana Dlamini Zuma. So this is a battle that we must wage. But what I'm saying is that I know that President Zuma, with all the initiatives that he has taken, how much he has spearheaded the emancipation and the economic liberation of women, it's up to us to go and claim our space in whatever avenue, because no one is going to hand it over to us.
That's funny, because it sounds like you're saying Zuma is a feminist, but that's not kind of what we're hearing. And then there's also an interesting point that you're making, because as women, we're busy activating there, we believe everybody, then we get caught. And it's interesting when you mentioned about the court of law, and it just because the law said this didn't happen and therefore it didn't happen. But there are people who've been in situations where you are like, but this judgment has been brought. And
I know what you're talking about.
I
know you will find.
I'm glad.
I know what
let's
you're
leave it there.
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
You understand?
Yes, I know what you're talking about.
This justice system, for me personally, I'm like, manga, because if you don't have Jewish people behind you, you are going to lose. And Zuma doesn't have Jewish people behind him.
No.
So I kind of feel like what has happened to us, I'm mostly upset about the brainwashing that I've been subjected to. And I feel like my activism as a woman has been used against me, even in this Zuma situation, because I was in the forefront, babes. I was there. Like, we don't want to be for president. You must go. What? Like, they brought my tweets back for me. So, you know, like, I stood somewhere and I stood on a hill, and I feel so violated by the system, because what also happened is that before I was Zuma must fall, they were stifling my art and not saying what I was up to, right? Because, okay, initially how I came into the industry, they thought I was one of the blacks that's stronger together, and I got given my platform, and Sana Uwango was huge. But then when I started opening my mouth, the whites were like, oh, wait a minute, sweetie, we don't do that here. So they started stripping my dignity using the media. And what they would do is, and I do admit my tweets are provocative, but it's funny how in the media, none of the tweets where I call white capital monopoly are ever the ones that are being, it was always about, oh, she said this about Banang, she said this about DJ Zinte, you know, and then it created this image of this girl who hates the other black girls. But I wasn't even talking about Bonang, I was talking about the system behind the Bonang, or the system behind A, you know. So in that era, what happened is that when I started saying Zuma must fall, Kiri, the slightest poetry thing, go back room, go Soweto. They'd be like, oh, Ntsiki's have got a gig, guys. Oh, Ntsiki's here. And I saw, and I was like, then they started building my profile when I was doing Zuma must fall. That's when I realized, oh shit, there's actually people behind here who are actually playing the chess pieces and playing us against each other. So that's how I was saying, Guti, how do we navigate the system where a strong girl like me, intelligent girl, was actually played by the system about this man, and now we're sitting here, I'm having to be re-educated. So do you get what I'm saying?
No, I totally get what you are saying. I mean, for me, you are a Pan-Africanist. You are resilient, and I don't think that you should be apologetic because you say things as you see them. However, when we speak of the system, people who say what we say, someone like you, who says what she says and how she says it, will always be celebrated in terms of what is good and what is bad. And remember, me and you, we don't set the terms of what is good and what is bad. It is those who control the establishment. So what you want, you normally want people who will appeal to what you are generally saying. So I do understand that at the time when you were attacking President Zuma, you were speaking the language of the establishment because you don't want anything else, you know?
But the thing is that I wasn't speaking the language. I didn't realize that I was being used by the establishment. For me, I was like, guys, there's a rapist in the presidency office. Oh my God, we can't have this. Oh my God, guys, he's got all these women. He doesn't respect women.
Yeah.
So
no, like Naledi Chirwa. Remember, she also went into the IEC carrying that big ball, and suddenly she was in parliament.
Yes.
Now Naledi Chirwa is nowhere to be found. So that's why I'm saying that is the unfortunate aspect of the system. It uses you until a particular point. But now, what needs to be done? And for me, I mean, I'm mostly solution based. I mean, I support President Zuma. I didn't previously support him because I thought that I was in the right, especially with Nkandla and the money that was spent.
Yeah, but there are all these things.
Yeah, and for that, I cannot be apologetic because the money that was spent did not necessarily make sense. And everyone who was in the NEC and who was in parliament, they found absolutely nothing wrong with that. And what I've come to realize with the system that we're speaking about, that is controlled by white Jews, is that they don't have a problem, by the way, with Nkandla, with corruption, especially ANC corruption. What they have a problem with is people who start poking into the white establishment and poking
their money.
into white supremacy. That's why, I mean, they're not saying anything about Paul Mashatile. They won't say anything about Nomvula Mokonyane. They would not say anything about perceived ANC corruption. They would want the ANC to win now because they know that the ANC of Ramaphosa will continue to maintain and to protect the status quo. So comes in Ntsiki Mazwai, you start asking those questions. You would obviously be isolated. I mean, you've got a master's. If I'm not lying, you've got a master's. You're a poet. You're well articulated, but you don't. At the moment, you do not fit the frame of the establishment. Because I mean, when people listen to you, you're starting to open up, people's minds. So why would they support Ntsiki Mazwai? But I think we're getting there. Hey? I think slowly we're getting there because people are starting to open their eyes. People are starting to understand that Jacob Zuma does not control the means of production. He does not control the assets. He does not control the economy. So he's not an enemy. He's not our enemy.
He's just as broke as us, actually.
To tell you the truth. And MK is just as broke as everyone else. That's why in their rally, people went to the stadium with their own money. There was no KFC. People just volunteered to go to the stadium. Unlike the ANC with FNB, where state money was used to bus people to the stadium. So that is the difference. And what people don't understand, people would say, "Oh, you hate Ramaphosa." No, we actually, I vehemently hate what he stands for and what he represents and what he protects. And I think that's where we stand because you come from privilege. I mean, you don't have to be fighting these battles. You could be somewhere else. I mean, you went to one of the best schools. You stayed in one of the best, suburbs in the township. So I don't think you should be fighting these battles. I mean, at most, you should be enjoying champagne and be like all these other celebrities who are in the mainstream who are teaching us absolutely nothing but alcohol, sex, and but you're just different. And I think there's going to be space for you. I think you should not be wearing...
I mustn't commit suicide yet.
No.
That's what I wonder about you, because you are one of the most brilliant women I know in the world.
Thank you.
Not even in the world. And often I sit and I go, how did the ANC let go of this? Because it's an asset. Sometimes it's not easy being a strong person and being brilliant, because you're not an easy energy to be around, and usually it's easier to just... Is that maybe what happened in the ANC, that your energy became overwhelming for the space? Because you can't dim down your brain, and I know that it was on a higher frequency than a lot of the people you're working with, most of them. So I want to know, what was your then journey, and where do you fit yourself in as strong, brilliant woman? Where's your space?
I don't think they care. I think we have this perception about the ANC that it's a liberation movement, that it's a revolutionary movement. And when you come to the realization that actually those people, in fact, when you take what Smart Ngonyama said, that we did not struggle to be poor, you then realize that, wow, I'm coming here with all these ideas. I'm actually in the wrong space, because the leadership is here to just accumulate as much as possible. So that's why you have your Thabo Mbeki, Kgalema, everyone now coming up and ganging up against Jacob Zuma. Not because of anything else. It's because they're protecting the status quo, and they're protecting the elite. And the unfortunate thing, because you must remember, the ANC is, on one hand, the ANC is this organization, but the majority of people who vote for the ANC are the poorest of the poor. That's why in this particular election, or with this particular election, the ANC is not focusing on the economy or how to reform the economy. It's mainly focusing on social grants, because the ANC knows that people who are going to vote for it are the ones who rely on social grants, on 350. That's why they're saying we are going to increase social grants to 700 rand. So it's this illusion. And I said this a long time ago. I remember when I said, but your perception and the reality of the ANC, those are two different things. The ANC is a money-making scheme using the state and taxpayers' money. So you go in with these ideas and being an ideologue and quoting the National Democratic Revolution strategy and tactics and saying that, no, the ANC posits itself as a disciplined force of the left and the working class. And then you realize, oh my goodness, I've been lying to myself. You even look at the SACP, you look at Lady Zimande, you look at what they were selling us, especially towards Polokwane, the SACP in particular, which used to lambast Thabo Mbeki as a capitalist. They came up with this, they had this theme, which they called the 1996 class, which was mainly characterizing Thabo Mbeki as a capitalist, as part of
Which
the
he is.
imperialist. Oh, he is.
Yeah.
But then immediately when Blade got into office, he just became a technocrat. He just became an official, and even now he wants to come back as a minister. I mean, I'm not sure if you are aware, Ntsiki, in 2015, 2016, Jacob Zuma told Blade Nzimande and this one, the Minister of Public Enterprise, Pravin Gordhan, at the time he was Minister of Finance. He told them to go look for the money for free education, specifically on 0% increment. And they didn't do it because, when you increase student education, or when you bring in free education, it means that you are now impeding on people and the banks which benefit from higher education.
Whoa.
So, and
Yeah.
I hope that your viewers would look this up. 2015, 2016, Jacob Zuma did tell Pravin Gordhan and the Minister
Shit.
of Higher Education, who's also the president of the SACP, to go look for money for free education. And then what happened? Towards his exit, he decided, just like Cyril is doing now, he decided to ensure that free education becomes a policy of government. But it was not a new thing. It's something that he was punting, but his own party in parliament, in cabinet, it was against free education or 0% increment. So that's what the ANC is. We've been played here. We've been played for a very long time. The ANC is there to preserve the interests of the Jewish, the Jewish economy. I mean, we're sitting here in Sandton at this beautiful place.
Owned
By the Jewish. I mean, it's owned by the Jews. It's owned by the white Jews. And for me, the saddest thing, Ntsiki, before we move on, when I see the ANC spearheading the fight against Israeli, taking Israeli to the ICJ, and I'm like, you are living in your own country where your own constitution is anti-black, it's anti-poor, the land is still in white hands,
Right.
and you're going to fight the battles of the Palestinians, which is okay. But
Good for you.
the
but-
contradiction is that your own economy here is owned by the very Zionists who have dual citizenship in Israeli. So they're paying, it's lip service because they want the Western Cape vote. Ultimately, it's not even about the Palestinians. It's about the people or the Muslims in the Western Cape, so that those Muslims, they vote for the ANC. But the president of the ANC is funded by the very Zionists, who, as I'm saying, they take their monies to Israeli. And when they take their monies to Israeli, what happens? The Israeli government buys the same armaments which kill, the children, the women, the men in Palestine. So we cannot be fooled by this heroism of the ANC, which as I said, is just lip service for votes, as they always do. I mean, they can't fight for you and me. We are landless, we are in debt, we own nothing. They can't fight for us. So they're just, playing all of us as usual.
And just using, the CR17 administration has just been such a money heist.
It
By
has.
the way, it's just been a money heist. And it's amazing how black people don't get angry. Or maybe it's because they just don't understand, actually. I think that the wealth of this country is so far away from blacks that they don't even have an idea You were saying something just now that was, we're talking about education. For a long time, we kept wondering, Hore, why can't they just have be a budget? Like, you know how much it takes to run Wits University, right, every single year? And Bonabo Oppenheimers, Libo De Beers, Libo Rupert, they handle that bill. And people go to school nicely, and year in, year out, people come like a normal, right? Because if you're eating from the land and you're eating from the economy, at least cover some things, right? So, but then you mentioned something about the banks. Then I realized, okay, that's why.
It's like social grants. If you look at social grants, let's say you're 350 or 500 plus, the people who benefit and who also get subsidized from that ministry. It's the same. White companies, it's retail companies, your ShopRite Shakers. It's the same banks as well. So you take a person who earns, and in fact, there's a book that was written. It's called An Empty Plate, which speaks into this, how our own government is actually colluding with retail companies, and it also speaks to how our government is also punishing farmers, because many people are saying, oh, kill the farmer, kill the brewer. And for me, it has always, I actually never understood it, and I tried to respond to what you asked. But I always ask myself, why did the ANC say kill the farmer, kill the brewer, and not kill the banker and those who own the economy? Because the farmer has always been, if you look at the brewers, they've always been victims of the systems themselves.
Yeah.
Many farmers are hardworking, like all of us. Yes, they were given land by a system, because remember, in order for the English in particular to continue owning the economy, they had to appease the poor Afrikaner. So that's where you are. The state itself, it's ensuring that all the money from social grants, it goes back to the very big retail companies. Now, if you were speaking about this education, why is it that those who own the land are not giving back? Why would they give back when they've never atoned for anything? What makes me so sad, I've seen ANC leadership, including your Makura, going to Jewish or Holocaust memorials. Yet they've never held the very Jews in South Africa accountable. They've never done that. Jews control our economy. De Beers has always been, if you look at Cecil John Rhodes, he was Jew. If you look at the Oppenheimers, they were Jew. If you look at De Beers, what they did in the DRC, also when they assassinated, when they assassinated Patrick Lumumba, remember that it was Anglo-American which was behind the assassination of Patrice Lumumba. You must also remember, and I've said this before, with the nuclear bomb, for the nuclear bomb to be created, they needed uranium from the DRC. To this day, Ntsiki, the DRC is 2 borders away from us. Have you ever heard anyone making noise? And then you were asking, why is it that black people are not saying anything? It's because of the fourth estate. The media is owned by white people. Why would we say anything when they set the agenda? With due respect, they give us Ntsiki, not Ntsiki Mazwai, they give us Zodwa Wabantu.
Yes.
So we consume Zodwa Wabantu. We consume that guy from Limpopo.
Or Skomota.
We consume Skomota.
And our female celebrities have to prance around naked. Like what they're doing now, we're just like, why is it that to chase my bag,
you have to be naked?
Sorry to cut you off. Sorry.
Yes. No, so that's what it is. They cannot give you your content. Your content, as far as I'm concerned, and what you have done, and I wish people who have never seen your content could actually go to your platform to see the number of people or the type of people that you have invited and the knowledge. It's an institution as far as I'm concerned. But who would want ordinary people to consume such knowledge? Because when you consume such knowledge, you start asking questions. So you'd want us to consume Skomota, you'd want us to consume Bonang, to consume Mini and her mini skirts. And I'm just sad. For me, it's sad. If you take, there's this guy.
Do you know they haven't reported on Moya once?
I'm not surprised.
They have not report. They report on everything. They have not reported on. There are people out there who don't know that about a podcast.
No, you've got your podcast is beautiful. And what I've seen, there's this other podcast where they've got alcohol. They drink alcohol when they're talking like.
And have some.
Yes, thank you so much. So Moya is it's a beautiful platform, Ntsiki, and it's gonna blow up because remember the mainstream is dying, and they know it. That's why we don't go to TV. I personally don't go to your ENCA, Newsroom Africa, and SABC.
Yeah, that's
There's
not
no
the
point.
people are.
They are dying. This is the new mainstream media.
Yeah.
Yes, and it needs to be elevated. It needs to be supported because they need more scomotas. Because if you consume scomota, if you consume
you're gonna stay
more
down.
Somizi was one of the most brilliant. Sarafina. But we don't know that Somizi, who was in theater, Somizi
Used to be so brilliant.
Oh, so brilliant. But now we know Somizi
He's
when
a
he
clown.
Yeah, when he drinks alcohol, champagne, that's the Somizi,
He went from authentic to a clown in the blink of an eye.
Yeah, so that's the Somizi who is being funded and marketed. At some point, we saw Somizi broke and everything else, and he came out. And now Somizi is all over the place because what does he represent? Cultural
Rubbish.
imperialism. So that's what we are seeing. So they don't want us to know the truth. They wouldn't want us to know the truth because if we knew the truth, if we knew the fact that our president has never built one single factory, he has no industry, yet he's a billionaire. Where did he take money from? Where did he get money from? These are people with shares all over the place, yet they cannot build anything. We are blacks in a country as a majority who are consuming and not producing anything. If white people live here tomorrow, we're in trouble. We're going to start like Zimbabwe. Where are we going to start? We always make fun of our foreign brothers and sisters. At least they own the banks. At least they own their own financial service sector. We literally own nothing. We're just consuming. We are in debt. Look at the number of the middle class under Ramaphosa. He has annihilated the middle class, in particular the black middle class. So we are in serious trouble.
I've never seen a middle class shrink so quickly. And do you remember how it boomed in the Zuma era?
Yeah, it started with the Mbeki era.
But then they keep saying that the government, all the audits and the financial stuff, they keep saying that it started going down in the Zuma era.
What started going down?
They say productivity, there was increase in corruption, just in the way government started performing from the Zuma era apparently just went to the dogs.
Okay. So those who have studied how privatization works globally, the likes of Naomi Klein and Naomi Chomsky, when they speak of how privatization is imposed in different countries, they say that you have to create a crisis. You can ask everyone, including those who speak of the Gupta era.
Yes.
There was money circulating in the economy. There was infrastructure. Remember, it was during the JZ era where you had the black industrialist program as well. So you had intention by government to create producers, black people who manufacture, black industrialists. So that is not true. If you recall, and you say the beauty, and I wish at some point we'll get an opportunity to speak about this. You take Jacob Zuma, you take Winnie Mandela. For me, they represent one side of the coin. And if you take how Cyril Ramaphosa has perfected using crisis to his own benefit. Remember, towards 1994 and after 1994, how, for example, the TRC was used to legitimize Mama Winnie Mandela. So for me, it's no different. So you had look at this. The very people you take the advisor to the president on security. Who's the advisor to the president, by the way, on security? The one that I'll remember his name. Apologies. But if you take him, if you take Frank Chikani, if you take Mafi Marobe, all that group that started the UDF, that was part of the UDF, and that group that formed what was called the Nelson Mandela Crisis Committee that went to Mandela when he was in prison to tell him about Winnie Mandela. That is the very group. Just search, I mean, even if you go to presidency, just search the Nelson Mandela Crisis Committee. You will see it's the very people who have used the same modus operandi to attack and vilify Jacob Zuma. It's the same group. I mean, they even went to the TRC to test. I mean, Winnie Mandela was the highest ranking member of the ANC who was taken to the TRC by men within the ANC because they had to character assassinate her as a person who had killed Stompie Sipay. So you had to legitimize her, to character assassinate her, so that you destroy her in the eyes of ordinary South African. Because you must recall, it was not Nelson Mandela who took on the baton during apartheid.
No, it wasn't.
It was Mom Winnie Mandela.
We know Nelson because of Winnie Mandela.
We know Nelson because of
Yes.
Winnie Mandela.
Yes.
So Winnie Mandela was in fact supposed to be the first president of this country, so they had to destroy her. And in fact, but more importantly, they had to take her away from Nelson Mandela and give Nelson a new wife, a proper wife who was not chosen by the system. So for me, I always say history is just repeating itself. But at some point, we must speak about Winnie Mandela and why all these things, they had to happen to her. So I think for me, it's just the same thing, just repeating itself, and the same modus operandi as I'm saying, because it's the same culprits. It's the same guys who were taken to school by the Oppenheimers and the Menels, by the Jewish cartel. It's the same people who now control the state. I mean, who funded the CR17 campaign? It was the Jews. It was the white Jews.
And that's why they could seal.
Yes.
Imagine the whites for change. They're not fighting for transparency.
No, they don't care about transparency, and they are sealing the CR17 account because
It's about exposure.
it's about exposing. But not only that, it will also expose journalists. What about judges? It will expose and people. And people think that Cyril was fighting Zuma. No, Cyril was not fighting Zuma. Cyril has been working with Jacob Zuma since 2010, when Jacob Zuma appointed him as the deputy chair of the National Planning Commission, which produced the NDP. So they were working together because Cyril Ramaphosa has always had his eye on the presidency. He was just using Jacob Zuma, and it's quite unfortunate that the man from Uganda did not see it coming. Yeah, so
we're so lucky because we've got people like you who have been watching this thing and can. Because how the establishment is winning is that we're ignorant. We're just like, oh, okay, they said this. Oh, okay, then we just go with it. And there was we're spending a lot of time on ANC because we're about to vote now. EFF. I mean, for me personally, I feel like they kicked out all their strong players just to protect Julius. And what is left now is, okay, this is obviously my personal opinion. Please, guys, don't drag me. But I just kind of feel like, you've got this mighty movement, but what's the point of a mighty movement when it doesn't have brains in corners where you're going to move this movement? And you can see some of the fucked up things that they've done because they don't have the brains that are like, no, guys, not like that, Where if you remember when they voted with DA the first time, we were like, you can't do that. You can't be unabelung against black people, just the principle. Then they called it superior logic. Yeah, well. So for me, I'm just like, we're in trouble there because we've now got a mass of black people, and the EFF, the thing is, it's a machine and it's working, and the young people are. But the danger with that is that you'll be working, but you might be breaking the revolution. But your machine is working so strongly. However, you're misguided. Like, who are your thought leaders? And let's unpack your thought leaders and actually what do they stand for. So even that whole thing with them being socialist movement, but they're hungry for Gucci, they're hungry for Abo my fucking car, they're hungry for those watches, they're hungry for slay queens. So then you just step there, I'm like,
Okay. God save us.
please don't troll us.
EFF. Okay. My biggest worry with the EFF is we still don't know why they had pay back the money campaign. You know, who was funding it? I mean, they haven't told us who was funding. Zuma must. What was it?
Yeah.
It was a
Yeah,
Zuma
yeah, what was save South Africa?
Yes.
Yeah, but
they,
come on.
they were working. They were working with imperialists, and you know, in Marxist terms, we always speak about antagonistic and non-antagonistic contradictions.
Yes.
Sometimes people will say, to speak of superior logic. Some people will say that no, for now we must work with the enemy so that we achieve what we want to achieve. But you know, I see and I listen to Mbuyiseni Ndlozi and he's attacking Jacob Zuma, and I'm like, dude, Jacob Zuma does not even own the means of production. Are you so desperate to become the premier and be in coalition with the ANC in Gauteng that you attack the weakest, the weakest link, in the bigger, when you look at the macro economy and the state? So for me, it's a red flag. Mbuyiseni Ndlozi is a red flag for me, and the very fact that he has been elevated by the establishment, by Wits University, which we all know that it's a Jewish enclave. But if you take the West enemy, for me the EFF represent the better devil. But as you say, for me they've not changed from when you see the ANC and what the ANC represents, the blesser, the blesser reality,
It's
the slay
ANC
queens.
speak.
I mean, the slay queens. For me, it's just a continuation. They've not been able to cast aside that history of the ANC Youth League of Brett Klebel. And for me, it's an indictment, and I think also a spiritual deficit that comes with the EFF and their reality that they come from the ANC, that they are still children of the ANC. And for me, I think it's an indictment. But I just hope that, and it's unfortunate that we are a few days away. I mean, a day or two from from elections.
Yes.
That they went to report to Lord Renwick when they formed, the EFF. So I don't know. I'm always a bit protective. Of the EFF. I'm not going to vote for them. I don't think they would even care where what I say. But as you rightly say, they're not that much different to the ANC. Maybe if they can change a bit in terms of
strong leaders coming forward, so it's just not just one face the whole time, or one or two. I mean, Floyd and Julius, can they make the circle bigger, please? So that we, because right now we're at give Mr. and Mrs. Party. And now we're just all sitting there going, okay, now you've kicked out all the other strong leaders.
Yeah.
Now what,
Now,
guys?
can I tell you this? I was driving with my business partner, Usizane Lentuli, and we were driving in Hyde Park. And she was showing me the houses. And she was saying, oh, the corner house, it's huge. This is Julius Malema's house. Can you see how huge it is? And then we drove to Cyril's house, their neighbors. And then after Cyril's house, we drove to another house. And these people stay together. And
That's what I'm saying.
And you're like, if these people are fighting each other,
They're not fighting each other, guys.
Why are they neighbors?
They're not fighting each other, guys. These people have been paid off by white people, and they've been given big, nice houses, and they're just there to make us. Come on, guys.
Yeah, for me, it's an indictment, and I think for me and you, and I was reading your open letter to President Ramaphosa, and in the future I'll remind you of it. When you wrote that letter after he closed down the country, there's an open letter which went viral, and you were mainly on the side of the poor. You were saying, oh my goodness, you are going to survive as the elite. How are the poor going to survive when you've shut down the economy? Not knowing that COVID was being used to steal billions from taxpayers. But, a few people like yourself, Ntsiki, who are always on the side of the poor. I think it's, I think, you might not see it, but you are Jesus in another form, because Jesus was such a revolutionary that despite what he had, he fought for the poorest of the poor. And I think that's where you are. You are saying that you cannot be staying in Hyde Park and be saying that you are fighting for the poorest of the poor who are in squalor and degradation. You can't be saying you are fighting for the poor when you've got millions and billions in your account and people are sleeping without food. And I think that's, a woman like you who's born in privilege, the very fact that you are, prepared to leave all those things behind and continue being this revolutionary, that's why I'm saying it's Christ-like. It reminds me in a way of Jesus, because you shouldn't be sitting here and fighting all these battles. We could be having our champagne sitting here in Sandton, but we're not doing that. But you've got these leaders who come out, your Kenny Kunene, your Gayton McKenzie,
who get positions,
who get
support,
for absolutely saying
rubbish.
Nothing. You are saying Mabahambe, and people are going to vote for you. We are in the African continent. You are forgetting that when you take over a position of power, you have to work with your neighbors. You have to work with the people of Lesotho who are feeding you the water that you are drinking. We forget that the water that we're drinking here in Gauteng and in South Africa comes from Lesotho. And the people in Lesotho don't even have water. We are stealing their water. So those are some of the things that we are forgetting. We are forgetting that in Zimbabwe, Americans had put sanctions on Zimbabwe. That's why the people had to flood to our country. But here we are fighting for Palestine. We're not fighting for Zimbabwe.
Yeah.
Because Zimbabweans are here, and the very fact that our hospitals and so on, we are saying, they must go. But we are forgetting that they're not here because they want to. But Gayton McKenzie, he's got no idea what he's going to do when he gets into government. Uses our own emotions. And there are people who are going to vote for that. And I was so shocked that Gayton and Kenny could actually sleep so low, even with the Palestinian issue. Even with the Palestinian issue, I was like, wow. How did we get here? Just to get votes, you'll have to sleep so low.
It's for money, to put money in their back pockets.
No, that's true.
Because these politicians are really not here for us. It's for them to live in Hyde Park.
They don't give a damn. It's about sustaining their wealth.
Yes.
It's about their bank accounts. That's why, as far as, if it were by me, I would not be voting, to be honest. I would not be voting because it's one of the biggest scams. We are going to vote for people who in the public domain come out as if they're fighting, but they're not really fighting. That's why they are neighbors in all these wealthy suburbs. Neighbors here in Hyde Park, they're neighbors in Sandhurst, but they come out as if they are fighting. They're not fighting. Their children go to the same schools.
Yeah.
So it's
amongst the whites also.
Amongst the very same whites. They go to the very private hospitals. Just last month, Banyazali Sufi was lying to the voters, saying that no, you can go to any private hospital. My goodness, they're going to shoot our people the same way they shot our people at Marikana. Why would you say people can go to private hospitals knowing that these private hospitals are owned by the Ruperts, and these Ruperts and ANC leaders like your Juan Nochidenze, who have shares in these private hospitals, are going to shoot our people when they go there and seek for, what these career politicians do for votes, it's sickening, actually.
Sickening, guys.
Extremely sickening.
That's why I was like, guys, please don't play with our emotions, because ATM.
No.
I feel like Zungula is such a good soul, clean, pure. He's the type of parliamentarian that we need in parliament. But he's inside all that filth. I don't think he's going to survive, and it's scary.
Yeah, remember Zungula comes from, the party itself comes from a church.
Yes.
So you have the spiritual superiority, which other parties are lacking.
Moral high ground.
Yes, moral high ground. I spoke about spiritual deficit, which the ANC, which the EFF, which PA, they're lacking. So that's what Zungula comes with. That's why in Parliament he can address some of the issues which relate to the poorest of the poor. So he comes from a Christian background.
Yes.
And that's why I was excited when I heard rumors that Moya will be the leader of the MK in Parliament.
Do you remember how he didn't sell us out?
Oh my God!
I know, right? I know.
Oh my God! I'm
Yeah.
like in this country of
Yeah.
ours where all sort of debaucheries are being sold to us. If we can have someone like Moya, someone like Zungula, a traditionalist like Jacob Zuma, and I would be so extremely excited. But unfortunately, we've got a system. I mean, even this democracy is controlled by Zionists. They're funding everyone. I mean, we've spoken
Yes.
about this. I mean, look at
Right.
Raisem Zan.
Yes.
That party, I mean, the way the media, the way they're being funded, the way the media,
Posters.
they've got, I mean,
Woo.
there's no party which has posters everywhere.
Woo.
Like Raisem Zan. And you're
It's
like,
DA Light, my friend.
DA
They've
Light.
got the same budget as DA.
no, remember, Raisem Zanzi is just another DA because
Yeah,
they know
it's
that
an
we are,
offspring.
yes, they know that we're not going to vote for John Steenhuisen. They know that we're not going to vote for that crazy old woman called Helen
Oh my
Zille,
God.
who said
Oh
that
my
they-
God.
who said that they colonized, civilized us. They know that we're not going to.
Why is Helen Zille not in jail, guys?
Helen Zille should be in jail. She's white, isn't it? She's Jewish, so she won't be in jail. They claim that she fought for what, freedom, so she can say whatever she wants. She can be as despicable as she wants to,
disgusting
and
old
disgusting,
woman.
old
Disgusting
white
old
woman. Yes. So Song Ezo represents that. I mean, as you say, she's DA-like. She's funded by the very people who fund the DA, who fund Cyril Ramaphosa. So they know, oh, black people, we are up to anything that is new. So we look at Song Ezo Zibi, who's getting so much profiling by the media, and as black people are going to vote for that because we are so gullible to anything that is new. When this guy stands for nothing, which is unfortunate, and I know Song Ezo, he's a great guy, but for the very fact that he's funded by the Zionists, oh my
What does
goodness.
it stand for? Like you just said, where would? Because when I get your insight there, you know, we don't know him. What does he stand for? Like, why would they even
Fund
choose
him.
him?
Oh, they choose them. The Faustian pact, the pact with the devil, with all the money. Oh my goodness! I think where we are fine where we are because these people have chosen to sleep with the devil. It's a Faustian pact. They choose. I mean, who's this? Musi Maimane. Musi Maimane protects the interest of white people. That's why it's difficult for him to come out and say, my goodness, we don't. And some people will say, I mean, Thabo Mbeki will say, oh, what are they going to do with the land? My goodness, Thabo Mbeki, your wife is a multi-millionaire when she has never worked in her life. Yet she's a multi-millionaire. She's got shares in the banks. She's got shares in the pharmaceutical companies. You know, she's got shares everywhere. That's why Thabo Mbeki does not want us to own the means of production because
He wants to hold them.
Yes, he represents the interests of white capital. Your Khalima Motlanthe, who sits in Brandhurst. And my dear, just to close this, are you aware that the Oppenheimers now, they control 100% of the aluminium can industry in Nigeria? Nigerians are what, close to 600 million, close to 1 billion. And the aluminium industry has been handed over on a silver platter to the Oppenheimers. Why? Because former leaders and former presidents, they now form part of the Brandhurst Foundation. So what the Oppenheimers have done, they've co-opted former presidents of different countries, your Khalima Motlanthe, your Obasanjo, and others. They are part of Brandhurst Foundation. That's why it's easy for the Oppenheimers to leave mining and to venture into new industries. So when Nigerians are running everywhere, they're running to the UK, they're running to the US, they're running to the US, their economy is controlled by the Zionists, this Jewish family, which killed, which oppressed, which tortured, which has never accounted for what they've done. They now control the Nigerian can industry because of your Obasanjo, who is here in South Africa, who is part of the Brandhurst Foundation. No different to the president of Zambia, the president of Malawi, and others who are part of the Brandhurst Foundation, who are funded by the Brandhurst Foundation, which is using their billions to capture all the other governments in the African continent. That's why you don't see any movement. It's because the Oppenheimer family continues, and they find different ways to capture our continent. Before, it was through our minerals. They're leaving the minerals now. They're venturing into your renewable energy. They're venturing into your candy industry.
Guys.
Angeke bashone, it's generational wealth.
That's the problem.
It's generational wealth, my dear. These people have got money for days. I mean, they can buy Thabo Mbeki, they can buy Kgalema Motlanthe.
Imagine.
Yeah, I mean,
I kind of feel like Thabo Mbeki kind of killed his legacy in this last 6 months. Nje. I was just like, you could have just quietly sat in the corner and just.
Why do you
we
think?
would've-
Yeah, why do you think he's obsessed with Jacob Zuma?
I think he's obsessed, on actually quite a superficial level
Okay.
of, I can't believe this idiot who can't even speak English is more popular than me. I think that is the premise of, I think it's jealousy.
No.
I think literally because the thing is that these privileged blacks, the ones who speak English, they think that when they speak, sense is coming out naturally.
Yeah.
Like, they just think that because
They're English.
just because they're talking,
yeah.
it means uti.
I'm an African, and I owe my being.
Babes, it just, and I've seen with the people I've grown up with, whatever, Kanabani who are pissed off with me because I was like, no guys, we've been lied about Jacob Zuma. There's a lawyer that I know who keeps coming to my social media, and because he speaks such good English, he thinks that he is being so brilliant, and he's like, yeah, hey you Ntsiki with your stock file thing, and I'm just like, you are this educated boy. Are you telling me that you don't realize what the idea of MK stands for? That you're going to fixate on this one man and then call it a stock file and throw these names that you're hearing just because you are eaten there by CR administration, by the way, also. But where you see someone who's educated, went to UCT, has got law firms, but their thinking is that of an idiot who listens to white people and runs with that narrative.
Uncle Tom's. That's my problem. Even with my relationships in particular, it's difficult for me to hold a relationship because for some odd reason the devil always sends this comrades, there's tenderpreneurs.
Yes.
And you have this conversation and the person says, oh, Zuma this and Zuma that, and you're like, hey, you idiot, you are part of the ANC corrupt tenderpreneurs. I mean, you guys are part of the people who stole billions during COVID. You are part of the people who can't deliver water in rural areas. You steal money meant for water, money meant for medicine, money meant for the poor. And you think you've got the audacity to tell me about a Jacob Zuma who left office like 5 years ago. Oh my goodness, don't even come for me. No, I mean, and for me, it's an indictment. And when it comes to Thabo Mbeki, I'm like, dude, you killed people during your tenure. You're an AIDS denialist. You instead chose to buy armaments. This guy bought weapons. Weapons over R1 billion. He bought weapons instead of, giving people ARVs, instead of giving pregnant women Nivaropin. And you had this Jacob Zuma, this uneducated Jacob Zuma, who came into power and ensured that he overturned every decision that was taken by Thabo Mbeki. That's why people are not dying like flies. I mean, when we were growing up in the township, HIV, Thabo Mbeki was bad. You could literally, you could see people.
I know. I remember.
Yes. So I'm like, Jacob Zuma literally saved us because we'd be dying like flies. And now I think of all, the young people who are in their 30s who were born with HIV because Thabo Mbeki denied them, or denied their mothers of Nivaropin. I mean, I also recall that at some point, the late Chief Gachabutelezi had to even take Thabo Mbeki to court so that in KZN they could provide Nivaropin for pregnant women. And Thabo Mbeki thinks that we are stupid, we have forgotten that. And for me, what is so sad, when I look at Zaki Ahmad, and I look at all the guys who are part of Samboko, who are part of TAC, who are silent when Thabo Mbeki goes out as a paragon of morality, telling people that Zuma is a counter-revolutionary when he committed a genocide against our people. We are a lucky few. We are lucky few that now we have access to post-exposure. that pregnant women have got access to Nivaropin. I mean, I'm like, the decency, to the extent that I think that is part of the Illuminati. I'm sorry, I mean,
I think I'm on your side.
Yeah,
I think I'm you, you are me.
yeah, because like, if, you know, Ntsiki, if Thabo Mbeki was given a third term, it means that he would have continued with his AIDS denialism. That's why he hates Jacob Zuma, because
It's an ego.
yes, well, no, I don't care if it's an ego, because you have a man here who came after your tenure, who saved people's lives, and you have the decency to go about and character assassinate this man who did not even come after you. Because remember, there was a point where the Treatment Action Campaign was saying that Thabo Mbeki must be taken to court for genocide. But Jacob Zuma did not even look at the past. He came up with solutions. And you want to tell us that this man is a counter-revolutionary who cleaned up your mess. I mean, no, for God's sake, Thabo Mbeki, go sit down and enjoy your pension.
Did you see the letter Yamba Zimba Chuloa?
Mbazima.
I love you.
The man who joined COPE after he left the ANC, all the AIDS denialists went to join COPE. They lost in Polokwane in 2007 because they supported the AIDS denialists. I mean, I was even thinking of your Peter Mugaba. I was thinking of your Pax Mankahlana. I was thinking of all the young people who died during Thabo Mbeki's era because they believed his crap, because they believed that they did not believe in ARVs. And you have the Mbazima Shilowa. I mean, Mbazima Shilowa's wife is wealthy now through shares that she got from all these white companies. And Mbazima, I mean, what about the money that they
She's my
make?
hero, you know that?
Oh,
All these like aunts and uncles, I used to be like, Aunt Mang,
abo
Uncle Mang.
Wendilo
I
Habe, abo Zanele Mbeki,
Yes.
all of these women who they've never
Now I
even,
must look down when the aunts are around because I'm like, yo, guys, don't guys.
how do they make money?
Yo,
I
but
mean-
aunt now, what Uncle Mang Mang.
There are no factories that you can, I mean, you can't point at one factory that these people build, this BEE,
No.
these Amazons, this BE Amazons who walk about.
They did nothing.
They
About
did
black
nothing.
excellence.
Or what are black diamonds?
What did they do
They
for black
didn't
people?
build anything.
In fact, you know what happens, Papa? No, the white people use them in these CEO positions, whatever. Then it's retirement, and then
Yes.
they go back to the hood, and then
That's
they
it.
fill in the next person, and there's a cycle of poverty. There's no ending of poverty for black people because someone is already ready to get sold, and then they get used, and then they get thrown out, and then the next person comes in. So we are just
Yeah.
there's always someone.
Available to be used. That's why, for me, I always say I'd rather work with Afrikaners. I mean, we inherited their factories, we inherited their SOEs, and what did we do? We privatized the SOEs that they had built, and we gave them back, to the English. I mean, English. I mean, I cannot stand liberals, to be honest. I mean, I cannot stand your
Same.
Oppenheimer. I cannot stand your Helen Ziller. I cannot stand all these people who go about parading themselves as paragons of morality.
These white journalists.
Yes, this white journalists. Yeah,
Just
this.
like Stephen Khotes,
Oh,
Bo,
Stephen
Karen.
Yes, Karen.
Imagine the caliber of whites that we have to consider
Oh my God.
as journalists. Like I look at a Karen and I'm like, are you serious?
You've got a master's, my dear. Yet Karen is considered to be. I mean, really.
I mean, really.
I mean, Karen, because she's white.
I mean, really.
But
She's not even half as educated as me.
She's not. She is definitely not. Yes, yet she's a leader. I mean, she's an expert. They say she's a judicial,
one of the.
judicial expert.
She's a senior at the ENCAs or wherever she was.
Wherever she is, News 24.
Guys,
News.
I'm always like, wow.
Yes, it is
Must
what it
be
is.
nice, huh?
White privilege, my dear. And then you have to speak proper English
Yes.
for you to be part of the senior journalists like Song Enzo, who was editor of Business Day.
Precisely. Precisely.
And eat their croissant.
The Kathy Mushanis and the being so naughty. Sorry, Kathy. But you gotta use your English name and so when you speak like this, can you just unpack it for us? How you
Oh, Ntsiki, my dear. And unfortunately, it is what it is. And as you correctly say, these aunties, they were the ones, and they continue to be the ones who are being elevated as entrepreneurs, as champions of transformation. Yet you cannot point to a single factory and industry and innovation that they've created, that they've built. Absolutely nothing. They are products of shares, including Umbazima. I mean, with due respect, Umbazima, what have you done? Yourself, your wife, and your peers who went to form COPE. And I mean, these people, no one attacks Umbazima. He sits in the comfort of his home, and out of the blue, because, he's supposed to be the paragon, he comes out and then he wants to attack Zuma. I mean,
I was like, you just jealous.
for God's sake, Mbazima, black people are in trouble. We are in financial trouble. Why don't you speak up, against that? Why don't you speak up against monopolies, against oligopolies? And you want us to hate this Jacob Zuma. Whose interest are you representing? If not white people where your wife sits and has shares there, that's it. These people are just representing
All
white
the-
interests.
You know what it feels like? It feels like we're in an era where like all the dogs of white people,
are coming out.
and you can tell that the whites have sent them to be like,
Kubali.
Becky, go to Bazimba.
Yes.
Tokyo. And now we are sitting because Phaphano, me and you are in the generation of the women who are now coming into leadership.
Yeah.
And it fascinates me how these men think that they can even write anything, or like
Yeah.
with that Bazimba Shilowa letter, it didn't even trend. And I was like, guys are gonna have to accept that. Send to me. Send to me.
I can feel a community hall more than Umbazima.
Yes!
I mean, I've got more traction than Umbazima Shilowa.
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
To be honest, people know Ntsiki Mazwai than they know Umbazima Shilowa.
That's why I'm like,
Yes.
guys, stop. Rather sit there and preserve your legacy.
Yeah.
Preserve what you've done because it's late.
Yeah.
That's why I was like, hey, Tabo Meki, we used to love you.
And Namias, I used to protect and defend
babe,
it. I used to say no
babe,
beetroot.
babe,
I used to say beetroot, garlic.
Babe,
But
because
now-
I understood where he's coming
Yes.
from.
Oh, me as well.
Yes,
Me
right?
as well, because your health is your wealth.
Right.
But now he's like, oh my goodness, like
When he
no.
went for anti-blackness, I went, and then I said, ngoba when we scheme about James Cameron, ngoba nifunde nonke
Yeah.
university.
Yes.
So your white
and
friends.
Tony Blair. Remember, he's part of that crew about Tony Blair. And
Right,
so now,
Right, yeah.
they're coming out with Jacob Zuma. No, it's not going to happen. You can't. Not with our generation. Not with us.
No,
we
it's
are
late.
no. We are not the Nelson Mandela generation.
No.
we are not. We are not that generation. We know better. We are our ancestors. In fact, we are our.
We are our ancestors.
Yes, we are our ancestors. Those ones who stood up.
And the nice thing is that they can hear us. They can hear. At least they fixed our black languages.
Yes.
And they not speak English.
Yes.
Now we are telling them in English that
Bona.
game over.
And we can even speak Setswana, Sese Chololo. Like, we are well educated. We know our
But
truth. No, because I was saying, Tiki, and I was having a discussion that this is the era where our ancestors are starting to elevate. The spirit is starting to speak through us. And sometimes Ntsiki Ukangot, no, it's Ntsiki speaking, no.
Yeah.
And as your ancestors who are saying that, guys, these people killed us.
Yes.
They raped us.
Yes.
Why have you not held them
Yes.
accountable? They killed Patrice Lumumba.
Why are you living in concentration camps?
Why?
still?
The suburbs. I mean, the indictments, we go to school, we go to varsity, and then after we have to live in these apartments, we have to live in these gated communities. And if you have to go back to the township. We don't own any land. That's why Thabo Mbeki, when he says no, not all black people want land. No, Thabo Mbeki, just like you and just like your wife and just like the people that you worked with and empowered, we want to own land because we understand that land is power, land is freedom, land is emancipation. With land you can you can plant your own food, you can build your own property. No one can come as Otosha because this month you don't have money to pay. I mean, really, that's how in the suburbs.
What happened to, because I'm busy thinking, because we talked about women in politics, and I'm wondering, what happened to Sarah and Colleen? What was your feeling of Don't you remember Sarah political? Oh wow.
Which
That's how they would just. There's a political party, the women's one, Sarah, SARA.
the one funded by Jews.
That's the one, baby. Yes.
Oh, Makhubela.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
she's still there. She
Yes.
got a lot of money from these Jews. Remember how she formed her party? It's when the Hamas thing, after the Hamas thing happened.
Yes.
And Nabo Kenny Kunene, Nabo Lukota, they were invited by the Jewish lobby group, and they spoke out against Palestinians. And then she formed this party, and she, just like Usongezo Zivi, they were a lot of money was pumped. I don't know what's going to happen to her. She's somewhere there. They thought that she's gonna get black votes, but I mean, she's not a genuine leader. You know, when we speak about women leaders, we sometimes think that women are homogeneous, that all women are revolutionary, but we forget that women, just like men, I mean, they can be bought by the system. So, Colin Makhubela, I mean, we even speaking about her, she's a non-entity. We shouldn't be speaking about her, to be honest. But because she's a woman leader,
Yes.
we are, you know,
Yes.
I think that's why you are mentioning
Yes.
her name. But I mean,
Yes.
she's a factory fault as far as I'm concerned, because she decided to just take money and then speak on behalf of people who can kill. I mean, look at what the Jews are doing in Palestine. I mean, look at what the Jews are doing in the DRC. I mean, it's Israeli, in fact, which has destabilized the DRC. It's the Americans. Remember, the Jewish lobby group control the American politics. So just like South Africa, it's the same people, different faces who control us. And I also wish, I mean, coming back to Mogoeng, I mean, when Mogoeng said, oh, Israeli, I'm like, I love you, Mogoeng, but
I
my
know,
goodness,
right?
you went to school. You cannot be that ignorant.
No, you know what the thing is? There's a Christianity indoctrination.
Oh, yes.
And now it's messing with our people because they've believed this Christian thing and the promised people or whatever. And now it's actually not reality. And
It's not clicking in.
you understand?
But Ntsiki, okay, tell me, Netanyahu is white, he's Caucasian.
Yes.
Why would
Yes.
people think that he is Jew? Why would people think that he's a Semite? That guy is white, he's Caucasian, his ancestors are in Eastern Europe. And these are people who have occupied Palestine, and they're claiming that they are Israelis. Because, I mean, people say that, oh, black women with your fake hair, there's no one who's fake as a white person. Because white people believe, and I've always said that the delusion with white people, I mean, initially they used to think that, remember in our houses, Jesus was white. In Egypt, Egyptians were white, pharaohs were white. I mean, my goodness, this type of cultural babies are in expropriation.
It's the lies. It's the continuous lies.
Do you
of
think
generation. I think
is
that's
it
what's
ignorance
happening.
or lies?
It's both, because we don't go back. Because even, I mean, black people at the state should know that in Egypt, all those pyramids, they've chopped off the noses because the noses were showing that it's black people.
Yeah.
But people don't read. Our people, Phaphano, if we are not on social media directing the narrative
Oh
and
my
what
goodness.
they do, they're going to make TV characters trend
I'm telling you.
from day to night, Monday to Sunday. I'm telling you, for free.
But remember, you know, I was saying, remember when we were growing up, we used to watch films about Muslims going inside planes. Even now, Mangena, when I enter into a plane and I see a Muslim, I'm like, oh my goodness,
We're
they're
about to
gonna
get bombed.
bomb our plane. And that narrative was
Yes.
funded by the Zionists. It was funded by Hollywood.
Yeah, bro.
That's why
America.
Hollywood, even now, Hollywood, it promotes hip hop artists who sing about bitches and hoes
Yes.
and so on.
Yes.
Because they've kept
Yes.
African Americans in the dark. So that's what they do everywhere. I mean, I was like, Netanyahu and all the Zionists are white people. And they're fighting there in the Middle East. My goodness. And are they not asking themselves questions like, oh my God, we are foreigners? Yeah, they are foreigners. They're in a foreign land and they're imposing themselves. And they are killing the natives there.
Do you not think that what's happening there is going to happen with Orania? Yeah. If Orania had to arm themselves, they could just be like, no, fuck it, this was our land. You know? So this, Orania could be a future Israel.
I don't know. I've got a soft spot for Afrikaners. I don't know. You know, Afrikaners. I've worked. You know, I've supervised and I've managed Afrikaners. They're the most obedient people. I've even, you know, if you recall with our history, the Anglo-Boer War. As much as I think they're just naive. You know, Afrikaners. You just tell them. You just tell them, oh, you are the chosen ones. They believe that. But I mean, they took on the English, the Anglo-Boer War. They fought for centuries to be liberated from the British, from the English, and they chose to call themselves Africans. And I know people complain, they say, oh, they're calling themselves Afrikaners, but they've never chosen Europe. They've got no other place to go. So I think we should create different relations with Afrikaners because they're always extending their hands. I think they're just often caught in, I mean, they're like Australians who were
got that compassion for them, eh?
No, I do because remember they were also put in camps by the English. I'm not sure if you're aware.
Yes, I know.
Yeah, so they
were concentration camps here.
Yeah,
I wonder where.
No, in Heidelberg.
Shit.
There were concentration camps in Pretoria by the British against Afrikaners and black people. So the English, led by the Jews, they have exploited, they have oppressed everyone, be it Afrikaners, be it Portuguese. And nothing has happened to them. That's why they control our economy. And that's why they were able to fund. I mean, sometimes I ask myself, ANC leaders like Cyril Ramaphosa, like Halima Motlanthe, they are funded by the Jews. And the Jews, they preserve their memory when it comes to the Holocaust in Germany. How do you work with the Jewish community when you don't give a damn about your own history, about your own people? I mean, I don't understand. That's why that is what is confusing me with these black leaders. But I also understood, oh, they might be black on the outside, but on the inside they're not with us. That's why that's why Cyril could shoot workers in Marikani who were just asking for a living wage. I mean, 12,000 at the time. But you had to shoot them because they're disturbing your peace. So, yeah.
Who are the other parties? Who are the other parties that we can
vote for?
Yeah, or...
For me, it's honestly MK Party. It's not part of the establishment. ATM, they've done very well to fight for the rights of the poor, the marginalized, and black people. Holomisa has his own issues, and I know that he voted against Judge Klope, but he has been, steadfast on different issues. There's this other party called Forum for Service Delivery. They've done well in the Northwest. There is Sun Party, is a new party. I've heard the president, he speaks very well.
Do you think all these micro
Oh, there's PAC. Oh my goodness, we forgot the PAC.
Yes.
We can't forget the PAC. We can't forget Boko. We can't forget what do they call it?
Boko.
Yes, Agabeto. We can't forget the PIC. So
I was upset at the PAC, and that's why I didn't bring them up. Is because I saw some of their voter stuff, and they had women with weaves and eyelashes and fishnets. You know how I feel about that, babe. You know how I feel about that. And I was like, no, it's fine. Women can have choices, right?
Yeah.
But if you're going to stand for an organization that says, I am Pan-Africanist, you're not going to put the weaves.
You cannot promote.
Hell no.
No, you can't. That's why Ntsiki, I always declare, I'm like, look, I'm a product of cultural imperialism. And I mean, I grew up, and I used to model when I was young. Yeah. So I'm a product of the system.
Yes, the beautifying.
But what I teach is completely different.
Yes.
Yeah, what I teach.
Yes.
But you are.
That's what's so interesting about you, actually.
Yeah, but what you're saying is correct. But remember, the PAC has been destroyed. That I think it has lost its essence and what it stands for.
Yes.
And, I always speak. Also, when I speak to the Rastafarian community, I always say, gracious, about Tau and others. I'm like, your messaging is beautiful, but how you look like, it might not attract people who don't look like you because they think that, oh my goodness, those ones,
it's dirty.
Yeah. So it might be that PAC is just trying to appeal to everyone because they need the votes. So let's not be hard on them. Yeah, because I mean the system has destroyed the PIC. Yeah. The system has destroyed the PIC. So they are using all avenues and they're trying to
That upset me.
Yeah, they are even trying to speak to people who look like me.
Yes.
So I understand, but let's not be hard on them. Yeah, because unfortunately,
But when do we get to the part where we start being black, guys? Like, I just feel like it's such a delay, this thing, where people are not ready to face what they look like.
yeah, it's also a state of okay for me. I mean, I look like this, but I sit with many black women who look
like this.
who look like this,
Yes.
but when whatever they are, I'm like, oh my goodness, they're as white as hell.
Yes.
You know?
Yes.
So for me, what
a person looks like doesn't speak to what the content.
yes, the content, but how you look like and what you say are quite important. They must gel. But for me, Ntsiki, I think let us start with the mind. I mean, black men are also saying, oh, black women, I mean, black men have chiskop, but oh my God, they're so deficit. I mean, mentally, they are so colonized.
But even that chiskop, it has something to do with cutting off
cutting
blackness
off
all
hair.
the time.
But even those
to
ones,
be clean.
but even
For
those
what?
ones who have hair, I mean, black South African men hate Nigerians. Like, oh my God, can't you transfer that hatred
I know.
to ownership of the land and the economy? It's not like, oh, they're controlling us with their pennies. No, they're not. How no? But the way that they hate Nigerians, the way that they hate Zimbabweans, the way that they hate those who look like them. So, I mean, if you don't work on the mind, then you can deal. Because remember, we take off this head.
Yeah.
But our black man, because you know, when you look at Pan-Africanism and you look at leadership, you can bring in women, but it starts with our men because they are leaders. They lead us in our homes. But I think it also comes down to the fact that we are raising these boys. So even black women, I mean, those who look natural, I mean, who's guiding them? I mean, if you look at the US, they still have Minister Farrakhan. So they have
a leader.
Yeah, a leader. Who do we have here? I mean, if you take President Zuma, he's more traditional and he's more political. But we don't, apologies, we don't necessarily have a leader who is spiritual and who has, I mean, you take Motsefa.
Oh, yes.
He speaks about Korah and Kara, yet his wife is miseducating our children through the education system.
And that would take a family. I'm always like, I don't understand the dynamics. Okay, love wins.
So, but I'm saying that we need, I mean, I take someone like Aubrey.
Yes.
And this is someone whom I believe can start an institution, but now he's also political and, you know, traditional healing. So, we need institutions which are going to work on our mind. Because if you don't work on the mind, if you don't, I mean, we need to unlearn what we know as truth. I mean, if you take it back to 94, 95, when I was a child, what we saw on TV when the ANC took over, it was generation they used to speak English. And then you had your and Moroccas who were in English and their wolves. That's what we want.
We had to fight that battle. I remember that battle of fighting good to know we make black people speak in a normal language. What is this?
And we had shows. You had Felicia Mabuza.
What a mess.
You had Dali Tambo.
Yes.
Oh my goodness, I remember watching Dali Tambo and he was interviewing one of the apartheid assassins. And he said, oh, welcome, honorable assassin. And I'm like, the child of Oliver Tambo. I'll send you the clip. And I was like, the child of Oliver Tambo calling an apartheid assassin, honorable assassin. I dropped off. I'm like, wow. And I posted that 2 years. It shocked me. I'm like, no. It's a matrix.
Like the struggle icon kids though, sometimes, and the grandchildren, you're just like, oh my God, can we just hide the family members, please?
No, but if you read, Fanon, in The Wretched of the Earth, when he speaks about the educated class, there's a portion where he speaks about the liberator, and why the liberator goes to study overseas, why he takes his children to study overseas, and why his children comes back and leads. So it's no different. The majority of ANC leaders, I mean, we are being led by their children now. And what are they doing? They're part of the status quo. I mean, they are continuing with your English colonial system. It's just that they are black. So that's how white people are winning. You know, that's how white people are winning.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into it off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.